What's up, guys? Welcome back to Newswave. Yesterday, we did have Sony State of Play, which certainly caused some back and forth with different reactions online based on how much you were hoping to see Sony first-party games there. Well, we did have a few. It was kind of all over the place, but we'll go over every single announcement that was at the show here today, which actually does also include PlayStation Plus titles, which seems like we have a bunch of classic games going in this year, and a few of them do start next week. And we have a very strange Switch 2 feature that was detailed in a patent and actually might be something that gets utilized, linked up to the firmware. We'll go over all of that though here today. So if you guys enjoy these videos, make sure you hit that like button, helps it a ton. And if new here to the Spawn Wave channel, make sure you subscribe down below. And of course, members for the channel do get Newswave early. If you would like to learn more about that, click the join button down below. And we're gonna start today with Elden Ring Nightreign. Of course, comes out at the end of May. And we had previews go live yesterday with many different outlets and people on YouTube able to play 5 or 6 hours of this multiplayer spin on Elden Ring. And, you know, it actually looks kind of interesting. And I was already kind of looking at like, hey, I liked Elden Ring. This looks like it could be a lot of fun with a couple of people jumping into your game and trying to survive in the Elden Ring setup for multiple days. And as you're going through, again, many different gameplay clips making the rounds along with different opinions on what they've played so far, it looks much more hectic. Now, with Elden Ring, you take your time, you know, going around trying to plan things out a bit more so you don't get overwhelmed and then you just get wiped out. But it looks like here you have to pretty much be constantly moving very, very fast. Now, some of the weapons have been simplified in terms of their stats, as there's like one number you really have to pay attention to. And then as you go through with different friends, you get more powerful eventually to take down like a big boss after so many days. And it looks unique enough from Elden Ring while still using probably almost all the assets and stuff. But I have to say, just looking at some of the previews and video clips, I'm on board with this one, and I'm looking forward to it releasing May 30th. Just have to make sure I have a couple of people to go through it with that I know, because otherwise it looks like it's going to be a lot of yelling and frustration back and forth to move faster and faster and faster, not have to sit around looking through your inventory. Also, we did get an update from Remedy with investors. Well, it looks like Max Payne 1 and 2 is in full production right now. It also appears that Alan Wake 2 got a good update when it comes to, well, money. We can see this posted up. This is over on the Investors Remedy Games website, saying Alan Wake 2 sales exceeded 2 million units and the game started to accrue royalties. Updated company strategy and growth objectives now. So good news, clearly, here for Alan Wake 2, as apparently it's been kind of just working to not only break even, but make some money. Seems like it's now doing that after they've passed the 2 million unit mark. So good news there. I'm sure they would have liked if this happened a bit faster. So it did take a while, right? And they're talking about their physical copy and stuff that I'm sure is helping to drive more sales there. But unfortunately, Alan Wake 2, although it is based on just Alan Wake in general, which wasn't like it's not niche, I guess, but it's not like massive mainstream or anything. I think Alan Wake 2 just is working that franchise in the right direction, so maybe a follow-up to that. But right now, they're full speed ahead on the next Control and Max Payne 1 and 2, which I'm very interested to see how that one turns out with their collaboration with Rockstar. Oh, and we do have some bad news for Crytek. They posted this up on their official account, and they are announcing layoffs, saying it pains us greatly to share today that we must lay off an estimated 15% of our around 400 employees. The layoffs affect development teams and shared services. This has not been an easy decision to make, as we deeply appreciate the hard work of our talented teams. And the unfortunate thing here, it looks like they're just going to mostly be doubling down and focusing in on the thing that is making the money right now, which is Hunt Showdown 1896. And with that in mind, I assume means that Crysis 4 kind of put on the back burner now. And they announced that a few years ago. But if you get in this position where it's like, oh, okay, we have to start laying people off because we have no other choice, cash flow becomes very important. And sinking a ton of money into Crysis 4 right now, and who knows how far that is off. It's it's hard to justify that technically. So for Crysis fans, this could still be a longer wait if it happens at all. So I guess for now, they're at least focusing in on their live service game that is generating some revenue. But yeah, unfortunate news there for Crytek with layoffs and the uncertainty really around Crysis 4. And guys, with some of the quick news out of the way, let's get into the bigger stuff. Let's start right away with Sony's State of Play, which they said was about 40 plus minutes. Ended up being like 44, 45 minutes. They went into overtime so that they could announce a PlayStation Studios title, which is something that people were a bit concerned wouldn't be there at all. At one point as we were going through it, didn't really see that PlayStation Studios logo pop up much, but we did see actually a wide range of titles here, with many of them being third-party, sure, but in total, I counted 28 different games, and we'll go through them here starting at the top. And that's with Monster Hunter Wilds. Not shocking to me, I figured we would see another final push since it is a couple of weeks off now. It's coming out February 28th. They did detail the first free update in the spring, so as we've seen before with previous ones, they of course want to continue adding content to keep interest in Monster Hunter Wilds here, especially with like the multiplayer side going forward. Then we move straight into Shinobi Art of Vengeance, which looks awesome. I'm really happy that Sega decided to do this with kind of the resurgence we've seen with a lot of these takes on classic side-scrolling beat-em-up style games, as the studio that's behind Streets of Rage 4 is working on this one. And I mean, the attacks have like this slight pause when it hits, for like that extra added impact. There's a glider, they have air dashing, grappling hooks, so all of that looks fun. You have like the magic attacks in there. Coming out August 29th. Then we have Sonic Racing Crossworlds, and you're jumping between different areas with portals. They have like the prehistoric world, then you're jumping over to in the ocean with pirate ships and like a futuristic one. So that part's kind of neat, jumping between different unique worlds, seemingly as you're racing around. They're gonna have a closed network test February 21st. And then we have a new Digimon game, Digimon Storytime Stranger. And as they were showing this off, looks a lot more like, I'd say, Cyber Sleuth as opposed to Survive. So I wasn't getting the visual novel kind of vibes from this one, which I that's what I prefer, is more like a Cyber Sleuth kind of RPG turn-based style. It is coming out, they said 2025, and I didn't see a PS4 logo, so at least in some instances here, we're going to see less and less of that in just PS5 and technically PS5 Pro. Lost Soul aside, been waiting a long time to get a release date on this one. Well, we saw it, oh man, almost 10 years ago now when it first showed up. But as expected, looks over the top, similar to like that Devil May Cry action style. Really cool effects, by the way, when you're traversing around here. May 30th, that is coming out PS5 and PC. We're getting a demo for Like a Dragon Pirate Yakuza in Hawaii. That is this week, February 13th. Of course, that game coming out a couple of weeks from now. Dave the Diver also getting its own crossover with Like a Dragon. That's in April. Splitgate 2 Alpha. That is going live February 27th. And I've been interested in this since they did kind of stop working on the first Splitgate to create this one. And this is kind of leaning more into the arena-style Halo kind of shooters. So I think I'm gonna try to get in this alpha and check it out here at the end of the month. We had WWE 2K25 here, and it was mostly a trailer kind of detailing the island, which is basically, I guess, like the hub community area from NBA 2K, but just in wrestling now. And that is, of course, the game's coming out March 14th. Seems like a great way for 2K and Take-Two to just incorporate more microtransactions into WWE. Borderlands 4. Okay, so it is coming out September 23rd. They told us that. But also there's a State of Play this spring. So it seems like Sony is working to attach themselves more so to some of these third-party games. Again, as you'd expect, with not a ton of first-party stuff necessarily being shown here, but still a full State of Play for Borderlands 4 and it coming out in September is great news. A lot of speculation around this release date being shown with where GTA 6 is going to fall into place this year. I don't think it's before this game, so I assume it might be November for GTA 6, if it actually makes it out in 2025. We'll see. Split Fiction, that is coming out March 6th. Looking forward to that one. I think Ryan and I are going to play it and talk about it a bit more on Click R3 after it comes out. Directive 8020, it's got like a horror sci-fi narrative style game. It's from Supermassive. They did The Quarry, so think about that, but I guess more just in space, kind of like The Thing from what they were showing. October 2nd, 2025. Five Nights at Freddy's Secret of the Mimic. That's June 13th, 2025. The Midnight Walk. This looked kind of cool. It's like claymation horror first-person shooter style game. May 8th, that's PS5 and PSVR 2. Then we had Darwin's Paradox. You play as an octopus and you're escaping a facility that's from Konami. 2025. Warriors Abyss is a roguelike Warriors game, Koei Tecmo, that's available right now. Onimusha 2 Samurai's Destiny got the release date here, May 23rd, 2025. And then a bit more gameplay, a nice look here at Onimusha Way of the Sword. That's still scheduled, of course, for 2026. Metal Gear Solid Delta. We were expecting this release date because it leaked a bit early with kind of the look at the ape escape apes in the game. August 28th, game looks awesome, by the way. Really looking forward to this one. To me, it's a little bit of a shame that it's not out till later in the year. I would have loved to see this be like a April or May release. Then we have Hell Is Us, which I do think looks pretty good here, September 4th, 2025. Lies of P Overture, it's DLC. You will need the base game for Lies of P. Summer 2025, though, so fans of Lies of P, hey, that's a nice announcement. Just get more content here for that game. Dreams of Another, it's 2025, PS5 and PSVR 2. Look kind of a strange game. Different take on a shooter for sure. Days Gone Remastered. Okay. PS5 Pro support. New content. It's a $10 upgrade. April 25th. The thing that throws me off about this is Days Gone already got a patch and it looks good and runs really well on the PS5. So while I said the same thing about Horizon Zero Dawn Remastered and that came out and it did look significantly better, I'll say, in many of the side-by-sides. I mean, this one does feel maybe, I think, even more unnecessary, you could say, than Horizon Zero Dawn, mostly because we've already heard stories that Ben doesn't seem that interested in going forward with the franchise, but hey, maybe they'll have a change of heart here with the remastered, potentially doing a bit better, even maybe catching some new audience there. Stellar Blade DLC and the PC version, June 2025. We had the PlayStation Plus stuff here. I'm going to save that for a segment later on so we can focus in on that. So we're going to then move to Tides of Annihilation, which actually looks really, really cool. Action-adventure game in mystical London. They did mention there will be about 11 minutes or so of gameplay that will be showcased today on Thursday, so keep an eye out for that one. Metal Eden, that's May 6, 2025. Mind's Eye, which also looked really cool, summer 2025. And then the big closeout is a PlayStation first-party game from Housemarque. This was one of my predictions, actually, on the Click R3 podcast, that we would see Housemarque at least show their new game. And that's Sorrows. It's going to be building on Returnal third-person action, and they're going to show gameplay later this year. It is coming 2026. They said one of the big things they wanted to focus here, though, is rather than you just kind of learn as you go through and your character maybe not getting that much stronger compared to other roguelikes, they would lean into the idea that your character would actually get stronger with every single run, so eventually you can overpower whatever's in front of you. So I do like the idea of them trying to lean more into the progression side of roguelikes rather than legitimately having you start at like 0 every single time. So I'm interested on that. And Housemarque coming back here with another game about 5 years, I think, after we saw Returnal. Depends on if this is a first half of 2026 or second half of 2026 title, because it was first half 5 years after Returnal, which is sort of the cadence that I'd like to think Sony can get out of their studios, but it hasn't necessarily lined up with them every time in that regard. But Housemarque seems to have figured out. Looks like it's going to be kind of more Returnal, but that's not a bad thing. That's what they're good at, so why not continue going forward that way? Overall, I think the state of play was good in the sense there were a lot of games there, just in general. But if you were showing up looking for first-party Sony games, you're probably going to be disappointed by this. I made a video yesterday after the state of play concluded with a bit of a reaction kind of discussing this. So if you want to see more about that thought and kind of going through it, I'll have that linked at the end of the video in a card, or you can just check it out on the channel. But for the most part, there were a lot of games here, as I mentioned, about 28 that were shown off. And I think Sony just in general has other games that they've already announced that they have to talk about more. So it's not like they have technically a shortage of first-party games that they can release, but you're definitely feeling the effects of their games as a service cancellations as sort of these openings are starting to appear in their release schedules, especially right now anyway, for 2025. So we'll see if they can get things like Ghost of Yote dated and maybe set that up for second half of 2025, and then maybe a few smaller games to sprinkle in there from their first party offerings that might just be more remasters, like God of War, for example, God of War 1 through 3, not necessarily God of War 2018, although who knows? Days Gone's getting a remastered, so why not? Next up, let's talk about a certain feature for the Switch 2 that sounds kind of strange, but there is a patent as well as seemingly a firmware update to go along with this. We can see this posted up. This is over on VGC, where it says, a new patent published by Nintendo suggests players may be able to turn the controllers upside down and plug them into the wrong side of the system. Instead of reporting an error, the patent suggests the Switch 2 could instead flip the display 180 degrees, essentially allowing the user to turn the system upside down. Some were mentioning that in the recent firmware update for the Switch, they're finding things through data mining that it also references this idea that really if the system can detect if the Switch 2 Joy-Con is in upside down and what it may have to do at that point, which seems to be flipping the screen 180 degrees, which is funny. After this got out there and people were looking at it, some of the determinations were, wow, this would be awesome for dual screen gameplay. It always comes back to two screens right now with people, and I get it, the idea of DS games being compatible, 3DS games being compatible, or maybe just other ideas with that dual screen setup. At times I do wonder if people just miss the idea of Nintendo having two systems so they can do weird stuff like dual screen display on their handheld, but they are down to one system technically right now, which I guess would lend the idea of them having an accessory to then sort of accommodate that. But to me, it just seems kind of strange to do this because when you sit it in the Switch 2 dock, I assume it figures that the center USB or the USB-C port is in the center like it's set up on the bottom, but on the top it's offset a bit. So I don't know how that would work. I kind of figured that it would be able to detect if the controllers were upside down to tell you that your controllers are upside down because they don't slide into place anymore. They just click in. So technically you could put them in wrong, I guess, provided the connector does accept it that way. But apparently in the patent, it mentions, hey, maybe some people want the headphone jack on the top rather than the bottom, which seems like a really funny, weird Nintendo way to view this, but there you go, the Nintendo way to view it. But I guess many people will also just have Bluetooth kind of synced up, but hey, at least they do have that headphone jack there, and they're willing to allow you to turn your entire system upside down in case you want it on the other side to plug in. We'll see if this is something that actually gets through and is activated, because it could be in the firmware and not really used, or used in the way that we're thinking, where I guess if you want it upside down with the ports reversed, the airflow changed up, and it not being able to sit in the dock correctly, you can do it. So we'll see if that actually ends up coming to fruition. And in our last bit of news, let's talk about PlayStation Plus Extra and Premium tiers. These were outlined during that State of Play, but there's enough here I wanted to separate it out because we do have something odd from Sony that's happening here as well, since they decided to go a bit into the future for some of these announcements. Let's start though with what you can expect starting February 18th from the top. This is over on PlayStation Blog. And that's with Star Wars Jedi Survivor. PS4 and PS5 fully recommend this game. Absolutely. It's an awesome game that unfortunately, when it came out, wasn't in the greatest shape, so it was very hard to recommend anyone spend $70 on a game that was buggy and kind of broken. Now it is much better through many of the patches, especially here on console. So yeah, I recommend downloading it if you have PlayStation Plus Extra Premium. We also have Topspin 2K25. That's PS4 and PS5. I've been meaning to get to this game, and now it's going into PlayStation Plus, so I waited so long that there you go, it showed up in the subscription service. We have Lost Records Bloom and Rage. This is episodic, starting with Tape 1 on the PS5. We have Saga Frontier Remastered. That's PS4, of course, plays through PS5 as well. Somerville, Tin Hearts, Mordhau, Patapon 3, and then Dropship United Peace Force. Patapon 3 and Dropship are the premium classic titles. I know Patapon 3, we talked about that because it seemed to leak out through patches that were being done in the background. Dropship United Peace Force, I am not aware of. It was on the PS2, and people actually seemed kind of excited for this one, so I don't know let me know if you remember Dropship down below in the comments, because this was not on my radar, but people seem kind of hyped for it, and cool, because I guess it'll have trophies and upscaling and stuff, so we'll look out for that one next week to see what that's all about. But Sony did something a bit interesting here during that show. They detailed games that are not out yet or not even expected this month, but coming out in the future. For example, Armored Core Project Phantasma, and then Armored Core Master of Arena. These were all PS1 games. Of course, Armored Core 1 was the classic, the standard, the first one. But then you have the other two that were kind of expansion releases. I mean, they were seriously like half a year apart for each one. And these are, of course, all from FromSoft. They're coming to the service in 2025. No release date. They just wanted to tell us that they were coming out sometime this year, which is not normal, I guess, for Sony to go this route, but there you go. We have Armored Core stuff to look forward to. And they have two games that'll be coming out day one into the service. That being Blueprints, that's in spring, and then Abiotic Factor, that's in the summer. So I think it's kind of cool just to see Armored Core make the move into the service. Just odd that they wanted to tell us about that now, just sometime this year. I'm not going to tell you those games have aged well, especially not compared to the most recent Armored Core, but I mean, it's good to at least have it for just comparison's sake, I guess, just to kind of be able to reminisce on the old days of janky 3D mech combat, but it'll be fun to kind of go back and see the old visuals and stuff as well, and maybe just trophies being tied in. Sure, why not? That's kind of the idea of the premium classic service, right? To be able to get that burst of nostalgia and then be like, okay, cool. I didn't have to buy these games. They were already in the service that I technically paid for. But you know what? This month for February, not bad overall. Definitely give Jedi Survivor a look. And finally, I'll be able to fire up Topspin to see what that's all about. So otherwise, though, we'll look forward to hear more about the release dates for Armored Core and the expansions that ended up just being full PS1 releases 6 months apart. And before we go to the comment of the day, we'll take a look at the poll that I posted up yesterday, where I asked, give the Sony State of Play a grade. Okay, C was leading there at 44%, then D at 30%, B at 21%, A at 5%. Yeah, I would say Housemarque definitely saved it somewhat for me. I mean, again, there were a lot of games here, but if there was no Housemarque, it would have felt like just a full third-party presentation, like a partner State of Play showcase. I do like Housemarque and what they've been able to really accomplish from where they started, or even like the old days, something like Resogun, to now doing Returnal, and then 4 years technically from that releasing to then showcasing this and then coming out next year. They're on a nice cadence or a nice roll. So they're one of the studios within PlayStation that people are least concerned about. I saw some relief that they weren't working on a games as a service title. So I do like that they're at least sticking to that, because it's probably what I would have preferred Bluepoint to do as well. Bluepoint's good at remaking and remastering titles, and if you're good at it, keep doing it. Just like how we're seeing Housemarque stick with kind of that action arcade, kind of difficult roguelike style here. Yeah, keep doing it. If you're good at it, why not? Because now we know what we're getting into, and I am sure, like many others, are really looking forward to it next year. And we'll finish up with the comment of the day as you're seeing here. This is from Reshiram, says, Capcom should help Nintendo make another Zelda game, or at least remaster the Oracle games or Minish Cap. I wouldn't mind seeing Nintendo enter into another like multi-game contract for The Legend of Zelda with a company like a Capcom or others. I know they have Grezzo right now. They've been doing pretty good work, but with Capcom back in it was like 2002 to 2004, 2005, I mean, they were rolling. They did like the Oracle games, of course. They did a Link to the Past, 4 Swords. They did the Minish Cap. So they definitely made, like 4 or so, 5 games total? Depends on if you count 4 Swords differently, I guess, there. But I wouldn't mind seeing them go back to even Capcom, although Capcom is different now versus 22, 23 years ago. Clearly, you see kind of the games they're putting out now versus then. So I guess it'd be interesting, although I feel like back then Capcom probably pitched to Nintendo, so it would maybe have to go in that way again. But Nintendo seems to be looking to do more and more Zelda games, almost 1 per year if they can. So it might not be a bad idea to get another company on board next to Grezzo with a multi-game contract and see what they can come up with, since Nintendo themselves are heavily focused on the big 3D open world style Zelda games. Those take a long time to make. So it wouldn't be a bad idea to fill in some of the gaps here with some of the smaller isometric top-down Zelda games, have Grezzo and someone else come in and make them every other year or so, every few years, so they do feel somewhat unique with different ideas. And ladies and gentlemen, that's going to do it here for Newswave. If you enjoyed this video, guys, hit that like button. If not, hit the dislike. Leave comments down below about everything we talked about here today. If you missed yesterday's Newswave, I'll leave it up here on a card, or maybe you wanted to hear about some of my extended thoughts around the Sony first-party situation with his recent State of Play, I'll leave that right below. Thanks guys for watching, and I'll see you next time.